for you to get to the approval here, the events coffee.
On the 21st, can you request? Thanks. On the 21st, we had a special meeting for the Joint Operations Committee special meeting for the Enlightened Christian Gathering crossover event. They presented to the committee that was there. It was chaired by Mr. Denzel Burgess, and they presented all the plans they had. But some of the plans were still outstanding. These plans that we have noted in the document were the park and ride plan, bus drivers' PDPs, the buses' public liability insurance, the GATIC letter of good standing, the fire rational design, the fire rational design, the be-free securities plan, the generators service history, notifications to local ward councillors, businesses and residents. Those were the outstanding documents. So they were requested to come and present them to the office and submit all those outstanding documents to the office. The safety officer of the event, for their DAO, submitted all those outstanding documents. It was on the 31st, just before the 31st, because some of the documents were just trickling in, and the final documents were reserved on the 31st. Then on the 31st, because the event was going on, we went on site on that day to go and do inspections, seeing that I was deployed to go and work at that event. So I went there with my colleague, Mr. Abraham Manke, and other colleagues from the city, the building inspectors, there were Metro Police there and other colleagues. We conducted an inspection that morning of the temporary structures and all the other structures which were there, the stages which were there. Then once we were satisfied, that same day we issued a compliance certificate.
Okay.
Pardon?
So the compliance certificate is not fake?
No, ma'am.
It was issued by the city?
Yes, ma'am, I issued it on behalf of the city.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're back to normal now. At least we clarified this. And I'm sure the mayor can switch off. Because then we can go back to our trail of thought. Because we're saying it's impossible for this thing to have been issued. My normal brain was telling me it's fake. Now, she is saying this is not fake. All the documents were submitted. They went for in local inspection on the 31st, and we found that everything was in order. And then we issued the certificate. So on the 31st, everything was in order.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairperson, can I?
Yes.
The question you asked me was that on the 31st was an application. The lady confirmed that there was an application that took place long before the 31st. And I said, you can't come and apply on the 31st and be responded to on the 31st and then be given approval on the 31st. Those were my exact words.
Let me rewind. I said the date presented was the 31st of December 2018. And the date of the event was the 31st December 2018. So they presented same day, went for site visit same day, issued the certificate same day. So the next question will be, how come the mayor doesn't have 5340? Because this would have been a very easy thing, wouldn't have wasted the 2 hours we've wasted if the mayor had been given everything The mayor doesn't have 5340. The one he has is
The
from
document.
us.
The document.
Yeah, the document City of Tshwane Events Joke 5340. The mayor doesn't have that in his
Chairperson,
pack.
can I also just go back and say this? I said there's no way that you can have an application on the 31st, have an inspection on the 31st, have an award on the 31st. That's number one. And she's confirming that this has been an application that has been coming a while.
From the 12th of December.
Right. That's number one. Number two, I had asked the question that was in the submission ever anything made known of the incident of the 28th? And I think it will be good for she's not a police officer, she is just an administrator. She gets what she needs to tick, and then she will then comply.
Okay.
The question that needs to be asked
No,
is,
I'll phrase
okay.
the question, Mayor. Do you keep up with the news in terms of, it's December and you watch TV and radio, whatever?
Not all the time.
Were you aware that there was an incident at the church on the 28th? That something unusual had happened at the church on the 28th when you met with the church on the 31st?
Ma'am, we went to a meeting on the 30th. We had a meeting regarding an ESSPC meeting regarding the
What is
event of,
it? Yes.
it's an event safety and security planning committee meeting.
Yes.
We had a meeting on that day,
On the 30th.
or on the 29th.
29th. Yes.
We had a meeting on the day where we were doing again an inspection in Yogo. We were led by the authorized member, Mr. Zone, Colonel Zone.
From the church.
No, from Victoria West Police Station.
Oh.
On that day, ma'am, they said that there was an incident. And I asked, were there any people who were injured? They only told me that there were only people who were injured. Some people were injured. And the colonel then continued with his meeting.
Okay. Then it was the 30th.
There was 20, no.
No, that was 29.
29.
Then it was the 30th, right? Did you sit on the 30th to look at the documents or whatever with the church?
No, ma'am. I was only at the church, I think, on the 31st, after the meeting of the 29th.
So when you went to the church on the 31st, were you aware through the media and other whatever information, highways, that something terrible had happened at the church? At that point, by the 31st, this is like 2 days later.
Ma'am, nobody disclosed that something terrible happened. What I know was I was told on the 29th by Mr. Clifford, because I asked I think it's Chief of Security, Mr. Clifford, that were there any people who were dead or injured. He only told me there were people who were injured only.
So when did you realize that people had died? Because you seem to have missed the whole media reports around people who died. So when did you become aware that people had died in the church?
Later, very, very, very later. I think it was after the event of the 31st when we were trying now to ask questions and hearing maybe from media. Because around that period of the 31st and the 1st, we were very busy from our side. we did not sleep on the 31st. Then we had to go to another event on the 1st again to go and inspect it at another event. So on the 2nd, then that we started probing what had happened at the church. Then I was just told by the safety officer that there were people who were dead.
The safety officer from the church?
From the church.
Yes.
She was informed that there were some people who were dead.
Okay, so when everyone in the country was aware, people who are not attached to the church, who are not doing their compliance, who are doing nothing, they were all aware that people had died by the 31st. That people had died there, you were still not aware. That's you under oath saying you were still not aware.
I was not aware, ma'am. I was not aware.
So I'm saying you issued the certificate on the 31st.
Yes, ma'am.
You are not issuing it alone. Is that signature one of yours? Are you one of the signatories there?
Yes, ma'am.
And you are signed as?
The chairperson of JOG, I think. It's chairperson JOG.
So as chairperson of JOG, 3 days later, you still didn't know that people had died in that church?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So let's say you miss the media, maybe it's holidays and whatever. Who is this one received by? Who else is in JOG?
It's the same.
Because I don't think it was just you and the church, there were other people.
No, it was the safety officer who signed for the document. I issued the certificate in the, I remember it was in the VOC, the Venue Operations Center, after we have done the inspection. Then I signed that certificate.
So when you signed the certificate, was there a committee that looked at the documents that said, okay, they've submitted everything? Where were they submitting everything?
Ma'am, they had submitted everything to the office. To the office. On the 31st, when we checked our emails, all the documents were in. Then I took the book took the book with me to the venue because on that day we had now to go and work and do inspections at the event.
So who else was involved in who got the documents and who else was part of this? Were you just alone looking at the documents, or you have a committee that looks at the documents and says it's fine now?
The first documents which were presented to the committee, where the committee was happy with, it is only that there were all these outstanding documents that they needed to submit. And these documents were submitted to us.
Who's us?
Our office.
It's you and who else?
How we work, ma'am, is, am I allowed to explain the procedure? When you have an event, you go to the committee to go and present. Or in some instances, you come to our office once we have pushed you, because in most instances, you find that event organizers do not come on time to come and present. They will start pushing them to come and submit their files, safety files, to the office. Then we'll go through the files. And once we go through the file, we'll note all the outstanding documents and give them a document that says your event is now compliant, as we did in the case of the church when we had this special meeting for the change. What they would do later is they will be allowed to submit all these outstanding documents, your parking right, your COAs, or whatever document that was outstanding, be the letter of good standing, we submit it to the office. Then once we are happy with that certificate, from our office we'll issue you a compliance certificate.
The special meeting for the change happened when?
On the 21st.
Or 21?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then you say the documents were submitted to us. I was still probing as to who is us.
Oh, us is
you and somebody else.
Us is a committee that was there on that day, that was sitting.
Which
job
day?
members on the 21st.
No, I'm saying the outstanding documents.
No, the outstanding document, as I have explained already, that they will just submit all those outstanding documents, and from our office, which is my office, would have a look at the documents, and once we are satisfied, yes indeed, this is what we required, then we'll issue a compliance certificate.
Who looks at the documents? It's you and who else?
Myself and other colleagues, if they are in the office, will look at the documents together.
On the 30, when did they submit? They submitted the documents when? The final documents.
I think it's on the 31st May.
Okay. So when they submitted on the 31st, who was there? Because you say in your office,
I was in my office alone because only it was December holidays, and only I think the two of us, myself and Date Abraham Mantri, were deployed to go and work. We were deployed to work on the day at the event.
So that day, Abraham Mantri had also missed it in the media. The whole thing about what had happened in the church. He had also missed the reports.
I am not sure, I cannot answer.
Okay. We may have to call him up at some point. Okay, Prof, you wanted to ask something? Press.
I wanted to check on the meeting of the 21st,
Please.
after looking at the requirements for the approval of compliance, there were outstanding documents.
Yes, sir.
Now, the documents were sent to you. Is there a requirement that the JOC as a committee should sit and look at the documents, or it is the requirement that any of the 3 or 2 people can look at it? Second, do you have a plan? Because the checklist that you have here enumerates a number of stakeholders. Do you have a plan which will ensure that each and every person or group is identified here would play their role, monitoring that what has been agreed upon is given effect? If so, who is in charge of this?
Can I say I think the last one. What happens is once they have sent in all those outstanding documents, we'll just look at them from our office as the job chairperson. I would go through them, and once I'm satisfied, I would issue a certificate. You said something on the first one, sir?
Okay. I said this checklist, the number of participants. Yeah. What is it now? Metro Police, and you can identify the number of them, yes, stakeholders, or the stakeholders. Now, what I wanted to know is, do you have a plan in which you ascertain that each and every stakeholder play their role effectively? If so, who is in charge of coordinating all of this?
Our office is in charge of coordinating the meetings. We sit on every Wednesday from our office. We convene all these job compliance meetings, and we ensure we invite all the stakeholders to the meeting. Same with the job, special job meetings that would call for an event where a special job meeting has been requested. That's what we do.
I'm talking about a plan, not a meeting. You develop a plan to execute the event, the Metro Police, emergency, whoever. Do you have such a plan?
Of executing
The event. Remember the number of stakeholders here. Let me write it for Metro Police, environmental health, emergency medical service, disaster management, waste management, whatever. Do you have a plan how these are given effect in the implementation to ensure that the event is successful and there are no glitches.
During our meetings, what we do, I don't get it, but I will answer it in the best possible way that I understand the question. During the meetings, we sit in our meetings. What we do is we have people would come with presentations as well as CDs or soft copies of the presentation of the safety fund. And with all the relevant stakeholders, we sit there, we evaluate all the plans that have been submitted to us. Then on the day prior to the event, now it depends on the nature of the event. Some of the events you find that there are small events, for instance, where you have 60 people converging and have been categorized as low risk. Then we look at all those plans. But it differs from some of the medium risk events. With medium risk events, especially in particular an event like the crossover, what we did was we requested colleagues to become part of these inspections. Hence, when Pala was there and there were some metropolis, because on the morning of the event, what happens is we all go on site for a medium risk event.
When you say we, who?
We is meaning all the stakeholders.
All of them.
All the stakeholders go on site. Because prior the event, as big as that one, would have all these event and safety and security planning committee meetings. Then just towards the event, what will happen is we will converge to the DOC. The authorized member would tell us to converge on the day of the event at the VOC. On that day, we all take rounds. We all do an inspection. They will go around, do an inspection with all the stakeholders that are there. Right, on the day of the event, what happens is the VOC is activated, I think, 2 hours before. So all those members that are on site would go around. Whoever part of the crew to say, we are not happy with this, please correct that. Then after that, we'll go back now to that VOC. Then after some time, maybe give them, say, a certain period of time in which to correct whatever that you said, wanted to have it corrected. Then we'll go back now. For instance, in this instance, I was with Ndate Pala to go and do the final inspections on the temporary structures, looking at whatever that was set up there. Then once we go back, we issue, say, an occupancy certificate to show that he's happy with all the comply with the temporary structures, because in most instances those are the most critical things that would always create problems at an event. So we'll do an inspection, we'll check the gates, we'll check everywhere. Then once we are satisfied, we go back to vote. And the authorized member as a leader would say the event can continue.
Who is that?
The authorized member in this instance was Lieutenant Colonel Swan. He's the one who gives now a go-ahead.
Just before that, Prof, what date was the final date?
The 31st.
The 31st.
You do your inspection on the actual day of the event.
So the colonel is a police person.
It's a police person.
And already on the 29th of December, the Citizen and EWN sent SAPS probing deaths of 3 women at Shepherd Bushira's church. So as early as the 29th, already SAPS was probing deaths there. So this Colonel, you said is who?
Colonel Swan.
Colonel Swan did not mention to you that you are actually investigating this church.
I know nothing.
So when did the media find the story that SAPS was probing deaths of 3 women at Shepherd Bushira's church on the 29th. And on the 31st, no one knew that there were deaths that had occurred there. But SAPS was already investigating, and SAPS was with you there.
Ma'am, on the 29th, I asked in the presence of Colonel Zwane and asked Mr. Clifford Resart that were there any people who were dead. He simply said no, in the presence of the Colonel.
And what did the Colonel say when they were investigating the deaths already?
Nothing. If I
Okay, thanks.
Who is supposed to be, all the stakeholders are supposed to be there consistently all the time through the event?
of the 31st.
No, any event. Especially when you say medium risk event. We're supposed to be there throughout.
All the stakeholders, if the VOC is activated, now in this case everybody is controlled by the authorized member. Remember, he's the one who is given the authority over a medium risk event.
Which is, who is?
Colonel SAPS.
Okay. Okay.
So those are the people that control now, they take charge. We're looking at, for instance, that there are, as a city, we're looking at all the plans that they are in place. There is a compliance in terms of the city's bylaws, your environmental management. That's what we look at. But the final say, especially on a medium risk event, lies with the authorized member.
Who is in this case?
Lieutenant, who was Lieutenant Zwane, which is SAP.
Lieutenant Swan.
Colonel Zwane.
Lieutenant Swan.
No?
In your view, because you are married, was this responsible authority present throughout? Because you see, all the stakeholders are supposed to be there, especially if it's category medium risk.
He's supposed to be there.
I mean, I want to check from you. Did you see SAPS present throughout the event?
Which events are you talking about?
The event.
On the 31st, yes, they were there. The police, the SAPS was there. VOC was activated. Most of the stakeholders were in this venue operations center.
Now, 28?
28.
I was not there, so I can't comment on
Who was
that.
representing your team?
Our team, our offices were closed on that day.
So you were not present?
So we are not deployed on that day. I was only deployed on the 27th, and for the meeting of the 31st or any other meeting for the event of the 31st.
In the event you are not able to be present, are you not able to delegate members of your team to be present? Since you are bound by the category, medium risk. Are you not bound by that?
So it depends.
On what?
Because around that time, it were holidays. So a lot of people were not there. So we were just given a time in which to go and attend the event.
Now, if this is binding by law, why do you approve an event to which you don't participate, to see through? Why? Remember, if you are bound by law, if this is binding, this is binding, why do you approve an event to which you will not be able to participate and to see through?
So which one are you referring to?
20?
I can't answer that one.
Okay, let me rephrase. Under normal circumstances, your office should have been there. The Colonel Zwane should have been there, and the whole team should have been there according to the law. But then it was holidays, and everyone was on holiday. So you broke the law in order for you to go on holiday. Because the law says, Swane, yourself, and whoever, if you are not on leave, you should be there. So I take it when you go on leave, there's a so all because it's holidays and everyone is Christmasing somewhere.
Remember, we were on special leave. We had special leave on the 27th. On the 27th and the 28th, we granted special leave.
For what reason?
It was the city special leave. We were closed around, we were supposed to be closed around the time. They were all employees of the city were granted special leave on the 27th and the 28th, I think, and the 2nd as well. So what we did, we were told to go to a meeting on the 27th. That hence I obliged to go to that meeting. And in that meeting, that's when that a decision was taken that we should have another meeting on the 29th.
For 2 days. Everyone is going to leave, irrespective of what the law says and where you must be and what you must do. We are all having 2 days. 2 days of fun. 3 women died. About 19 were injured. While the city had decided, let it all happen, one leave now. And on leave during the very critical time when there are events, there's everything. We all know December 20-something, everyone is having a festival, and all sorts of nice things are happening. But the city, for 2 days, decides that we're going to shut down. And those are the very critical days, 27 and 28. It's okay, Mayor, I'm still staying with him. 27,
But I need
28,
to respond on behalf of the city.
correct this one, it's already on record.
That's fine.
27, 28, you all go and leave. You all get tired around that time. It's not your fault, the city says, we're all on leave. So on the 28th, irrespective of who must be there to look at everything going smoothly and everyone doing what they're supposed to. And that's the fateful day God. But the city is on shutdown leave. And there are no reserves like on an emergency, so and so is acting, so and so is acting. Is that what we are submitting? There was no one acting. Say yes if you're saying yes, don't not. Yes. So that we are on record.
Yes, ma'am. On the 28th, we were not ready.
Okay.
Ma'am, can I also object from the city side?
Object to what?
Ma'am, you said the city is shut down. Those were your words. And I can tell you right now, she was on duty. All non-essential staff members were given discretionary leave on the 26th and the 27th and the 28th. Non-essential service. Therefore, that means that should on the day emergency be needed, Metro Police would have been there, emergency services would have been there. Now, the question that I think should be asked was the event of the 28th regarded as medium risk? That's number one. Number two, if the city was informed, or if the officials were informed of the event of the 28th, would we have granted permission for the event of the 31st? Thank you.
Are you asking her?
No. Ma'am, I am saying those are the questions that we need to be probing. Whether you're probing it from the people who are there at the event, or you're probing the person who's supposed to be the head of an event that is regarded as medium risk.
Okay. So, Sissy, you were given special leave and you were not at the event because you are on special leave.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you left, you didn't appoint anyone because you're seen as non-essential service. And it's only essential services that are on duty. So when you are granted special leave, it's because you are a non-essential service in spite of the fact that you've got approval for a medium risk event. 28 was a medium risk event. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm correct. Press so that you can record.
Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't leave anybody because the city deems you as non-essential. Whereas in the church there, you are essential because when there's a crisis, if there's a crisis, then you would have been, people from your office, not personally then all the time. Someone from your office would have been present. So when 27 and 28 was given as leave, you were on leave. You were given leave, we all take leave when we are offered leave. I mean, it's human. And then things happened while we were on leave. So you can't say much about what happened on the 28th because already the laws were broken at that time. That people are supposed to be there, but because you were told to go on leave, then you were on leave. Although if you had not been on leave, people would have been at the event of the 28th. Is that what I'm hearing?
May I remind ma'am that our focus was mainly on the event that was coming on the 31st. Hence we had all these meetings and I was deployed. My boss told me to go and attend the meeting of the 27th, even when I was on leave. So the focus was mainly on the oncoming event, the big one, which was very huge. Hence, on the 28th, we were not there because we're focusing on this major event that was oncoming.
Okay, so the ball was dropped for the event of the 28th, although it was a medium risk event, because the event of the 31st had like 70,000 people or something that were expected.
Yes.
So people were not keeping the eye on the ball around the 28th because there was this big thing that had not yet been approved but that we were planning around. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Ma'am, what I'm saying, yes.
Okay, so you end of the 28th, and then the crisis happened. Okay, let's move on because I think you've answered me, and maybe she's going to do
I want you to take us on the 31st. I'm sitting with the 31st at the moment. Your safety file. Okay. You say you've received all documents, final documents on the 31st, the same day of the event. The 31st, I'm sitting with the 31st. And after receiving the documents, you then went on site for inspection. And the inspection was done as per your checklist. I should take this is what you use as you do the approval and so on. It was done to your satisfactory that you then decided to issue 5340. It's written 5340, and it was approved on condition that everything was done, everything was ordered in terms of your safety file.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was approved. and we gave it a thumbs up to say, we've checked the buildings, we've checked everything that needs to be checked on safety. Maybe I could ask, what is it that you are checking on safety? I'm sitting with the safety fund. That we then decided to say everything was in order. It can go ahead on safety. What is it that you're looking for?
Ma'am, when you go to an event, on the day of the event, we do an inspection in locals. We go around the gates, we check the gates. If everything is according to plan, are there securities that are searching the people? Is there securities that are counting the people as they were going through? That's what we did. Then we'd go to other areas, check the toilets, if everything, if there's water according to plan. That's what we do. Then we'd also go to the temporary structures to check the temporary structures, if medical is on site, because they had a medical center, we'd go to the medical center, check the medical center. Then from there, once we say, no, everybody's happy, then, as I said earlier, if there were anything that we felt was not correct, it would be corrected. They would ask them to correct it within a certain period. Then after that period, we'll go again to go and check if that has been corrected. And once we are happy, we'll go back and they say, the authorized member would say, gates, people can continue, the event can continue.
Can I make a follow-up on issues of fire safety? Was it part of your inspection?
Yes, it was part of our inspection on that day.
And you find that everything was in order and it was fine on the 31st?
What we did was there were all these fire extinguishers, but some of us are not experts in that to say this one is still valid or not. But once you see there is that fire, there is that rail that works. What do you call it? There is a wheel rail that you normally have. Then if it's there, then you happy.
I should think that as you looked, I'm reading from here, all what appears here in terms of your safety fund, your escape route was fine on the 31st for you to give an approval. You also look at the doors, of course.
Ma'am, the event was not happening in the church, in the halls. The event was happening on open spaces. Around there were open spaces. We had your P7 that was used for this particular event, for the crossover event. We had, and the other one was held on, I think they call it B Arena, the ABSA amusement park. There were chairs there, people. The halls were not used on that day.
Back before I did before the 31st, I'm going back to the 28th. The last time we inspected the building, did you inspect it for the 28th event? Did you go there, whatever, in local?
No, ma'am. No.
You didn't go?
When we, I think if the last time we did an event, it was an inspection in local. We never inspected for the event of the 28th. What we had was a safety meeting, an ESSPC meeting that was called, I think it was around November, if I'm not wrong, that was called by the authorized member. That was the last time that we had this meeting.
Have you ever been to the church for the local inspection, like the one we did for the 31st?
The last time we had an inspection that was done by the city, wherein we were not happy with some other things that we saw happening, and it was during one of the big events. I think we did 2 inspections at the church, wherein we were actually looking at compliance, because we had one big event that happened somewhere in, I can't remember the dates very well, but there were those events that happened, and there were other inspections that we conducted at the church just to ensure that they were complying.
Around what time? Which month?
It was long before the incident, ma'am. I think it was long. I can't just tell this.
So for months we're not checking. I take it the events at the church were happening weekly when they were not closed.
They happen weekly on Fridays, on Sundays, and Mondays.
Friday, Sunday, Monday.
Yes, ma'am.
So for all those events, you never checked whether they were to go and check if what they're telling us is happening there is actually there.
Would always go when there is this other event that, you know, a special event, because they would always have these church services. They will have all these big events, for instance, like the one that I quoted, would go there as a team to go and inspect, and you find that on that day they are not in the halls, they are outside. The last time I think we did an inspection in Loco, it was during one of the big events, and when there was a youth event.
No. So it could be June.
There was a youth, no, they wouldn't do that. There was a youth event somewhere. It wouldn't happen in June.
Oh.
Sometimes we find that there is this woman, Iron Man event, or you have your woman event sometime, then you go there and check, you know. Now, in some instances, they would have those events in the hall.
And they're all medium risk.
No, not all of them. Not all of them.
So the 28 was medium risk.
The 28, as you said, was a medium risk.
And the 31st?
The 31st was a medium risk.
Is there anything higher than medium? I don't know. Just
a high risk event never happens. It happens very seldom. Very, very seldom.
Okay. So the highest in terms of normal is medium.
It's medium.
Okay. Commissioner.
I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask. How long have you been involved with JOC, if I may ask?
After the establishment, I think, of JOC.
Yeah.
And how long would that be?
2013.
2013, okay. So you've been involved with them for quite a period of time. How long have you been involved with authorizations for the church?
I can't tell, because some of the authorizations were done by my boss, were done by the actual job person, because I am co-chairing with, yes, there is.
Been involved with them for a long period of time, either as a support role or as the actual representative of JOC, is that correct? Okay, then I'd like to ask, we're now dealing with medium risk events.
Yes.
Could you perhaps say, in maybe years-wise, how many years have the events at the showgrounds where ECG has been involved? How many years has that been a medium risk event?
I'm not sure, but it's since they started doing the presentations to the city, or since it was said to me a medium risk, I am not sure about it.
Okay, but would you say 3 years, 4 years, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so every single time they've come, you've ascertained that they're a medium risk, you've issued them with your permits. How often have, as to the requirements of the Act, that there has to be some representation at the event on the day to do the inspection to shoot with a medium risk environment? Because I mean, there is a risk factor involved over here, and it is actually the highest risk that we're talking about, because extreme risk is like planes flying all over the place and everything like that. That would be our extreme risk. So how often would it be that the personnel would be on site in order to ensure that everything is being complied with?
Remember, with the medium risk event, we only support this event, but there is an authorized member, a very responsible person who is controlling now everybody at that particular event, who's got the right to stop the event if there are risks. He's the backstop student.
And who is that?
Colonel Zwani.
Thank you very much.
Where's Colonel Zwani? Is he here? He's not here. No. So, okay. So the event is happening and things are going wrong. Colonel Zwani is on the day. And then this thing happens and there's no one there to give direction. According to the law, it's supposed to be there and it's not there. The church is left on its own. The people from the city have been given leave. I'm going back to the 28th. And then the thing happens and Zwani is not there. And then it's 31st, you go there. He's there. He's from the local police station, I take it, is he not? So they're already investigating this case. So Colonel Zwani decides, I'm not going to tell them that we're investigating those people who died. He keeps it as a secret. He misleads the city to issue a certificate of compliance to continue with the other, even bigger event. Colonel Zwani knows, because it's his police station, that the Citizen and EWN and others reported on the 29th that the church is being investigated. So do you think the church needs to then tell Colonel Zwani that, hey, Colonel Zwani, you are aware that you are investigating us? Would that be a fair expectation that the church must tell the colonel what his police station is doing? Or the colonel must tell the church and yourselves what the issue is with the church, seeing that you missed it on the, in the media and on TV and where else? What would be your expectations normally?
My expectations, I think, in a normal situation, the colonel should be telling me that, or telling the city that this has happened. On the basis maybe of what the decision that as a city will have to take.
So, would you have taken a different decision on the 31st if the colonel had told you what was happening?
Yeah, I would seek advice from my boss. Remember, I'm not the boss. I am just an employee. There are other people above me that I still have to report to from my department. Yeah. Yes, I would have to inform I would have informed the director that this. How do we move forward with this matter? I could have done that from my side.
So, the same post of a police station that is supposed to into thinking everything is normal here, they don't tell you that things are happening here and they're probing the story of the 3 people who died. They allow you to issue the certificate of compliance in spite of everything. And in the meantime, the very same police who are supposed to be there to make sure the bodies are not moved are investigating the church as to why did they move the bodies. And they were not there. They were supposed to be there, they chose not to be there, no one is there. And now they want to know why were the bodies. Do you find that fair in terms of fairness and from your layman's perspective? You're not a police person.
In a normal situation, I would expect the police to have been on site. I mean, I would have expected the authorized member to have been on site. If he was informed, of course, he could have immediately gone to the site if he was not there, or send an assignee to go and ensure now the proper procedures in terms of the disaster are followed.
Okay. Was he supposed to be on site or was he supposed to be informed? What does the law say? It's medium risk. Where is one?
On site, or if he was not on site or was on leave, he was supposed to say in this case.
So the law says someone from SAPS
Yes,
must be there from start to finish.
yes, ma'am.
And the person from SAPS was not there.
I was not there on that day. I was not there on
Okay.
that day.
Let's have two suppositions. Let's suppose he was not there, and then things happened, and then the ending was whatever that became. If he had been there, who would have taken control of everything that happened there? Who is the first person to say, I'm in charge here, now all of you move, this is my space now? Who was supposed to do that on the 28th if everyone had been there?
The authorized member, ma'am, because
Can you name the authorized
the
member?
authorized member is Colonel Zwane. In a normal situation, at any event where it's medium risk, the person who has the final say at any event. In case of he says something that there is a threat, he is the one who's supposed to say if there is a threat or something is being reported to him. He's the one who is supposed to advise and say, or if there is a need for an event to be stopped, he's the one who's supposed to say the event must stop. As I said, he's the man who's got the authority at an event to tell everybody, whoa.
Okay, maybe we're not here. Let me relate the story from the family's side. Because the family is the one who's most affected by this whole thing, especially the one family that has given evidence here. They say because then that thing happened and Zwane was not there, and then, it became like let's fix this, let's fix that. The thing that hurts them the most is that the service continued. If Zwane had been there, he would have been able to say, time out on this thing, close this thing, it's not going to continue. But from the family side, the pain is about the fact that then their mother was treated in a way that is inappropriate because SAPS was supposed to take charge of the ball completely. It became a grassroots operation because the professionals were supposed to be there to say, all of you move, we're taking over here.
And I just want to check that at no time, unless proven otherwise, that the church has always been compliant. Am I right?
The church has been compliant.
Or through and through.
When they first started, there were issues where they did not know what is it that they needed to put together. And we had now a safety officer that would assist them in putting all these documents together. as and when they were coming to present, there were issues that, for instance, when you pass through you'd see happening, for instance, like people who were queued, and I would call the then safety officer to talk to them to say, this is not how we should treat our people. This is what you need to do in order to avoid some of these things, because you'd have people queuing out there in the scorching sun, and would always, assist them, and would always advise on which documents to bring so that they are compliant. They would come and present the church services, and would always advise them what to do.
Thank you. Secondly, so far up to this point, from just taking December to now, the church has been compliant. Judging
Yes, sir. In
on the
terms,
documents that we have before us.
yes.
Where did it emanate that the church was not compliant? The media reported quite extensively the church was not compliant. Where did it come from?
I say I don't know. Because I have a document that says for all the church services that took place in December, they were compliant. And because they had presented a safety plan to us. So the issue that the church was not compliant, I don't know where they got it from.
Can you vouch that, the claim that the church was not compliant was in fact false and continues to be false? Judging on what we have,
Yes,
because
sir.
that represents what we are.
Yes, sir.
There is no other authority except this one.
There's no other authority except that one. The documents that we have, can I have a look at them, sir, so that I don't just say things come from our office and they do not come from our office.
You can see a signature there.
Yeah, I think these are similar documents. This one is for the 31st. Yes.
The executive mayor issued an instruction to bring Bushiri Church up to code. And the press release was made on the 11th of January 2019. Now, I just want to check the date here. The paragraph 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, where you are talking about escape routes leading to escape doors, obstructed, escape doors to be used during an emergency adoption. Just you can go down there. Insufficient firefighting equipment provided, no emergency light provided in the facility, and so on. These items were identified, or it was something that was investigated when the church was not there. Maybe they had packed their chairs and other things because there's nobody there. Because your compliance does not speak to these things. Because if these things were not in place, your compliance certificate would not have been issued. So by issuing the compliance certificate, it means these things are in place, they're okay. So is this not a contradiction in terms? Both you and the executive, whoever can answer this question.
I will answer, Prof. And there's something very telling on the certificate itself. If you look at the signatories, there was no a signatory from the EMS, Emergency Services. There was no certificate, or there's no signature from the Metro Police. There was no signature from Building Control. The 5340.
Check all of them. That's why I'm asking, because in all of them it's the same thing. Even from as far back as September, it says not applicable for the building control, Metro Police, EMS, fire safety. So that's the normal thing that happens all the time.
Okay, ma'am. I'm sitting here with a book, the same book that the same certificate came from. This would have been if all processes were followed.
What?
This is.
What date is that? What number?
This would have been the 26th to the 30th of December, the South Africa versus Pakistan event.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying that.
Okay.
This, I'm talking about what would have been compliant. All the signatories are. Let's check another event. The Fort Trekker Monument Golf Day on the 16th of December. Signatures are there. Okay. So there should be a signature that is coming from all of that, but I think the officials will be able to then look into that. I think it's an internal process that we now need to look into.
That's what I was about to tell you.
But-
That's what we're looking at here. The investigation is about who did what, who was supposed to do what, who did not do what. The whole pile of the compliance certificates that the church had been given by the city. For all those things you say, it says not applicable and stroke A.
Okay.
The church has no control over that. It's an internal thing that you as the city need to go and deal with. The challenge that you must always keep women who were not young died on that day. Who dropped the ball?
Okay.
We are also increasing the number of balls that were dropped by saying the people of the city were supposed to sign here and they did not sign. So by not signing, they are saying that thing has nothing to do with us. The church has no control over that situation.
Okay.
That situation is an internal thing. Who must sign and who must not sign is 100% internal. What you are making us aware now, Mayor, is that your people did not even follow the rules of the city in signing the documentation.
All right. Prof has asked the question, ma'am, to say what informed the media statement.
Yes.
Prof, this is what informed the media statement. This is an official letter that is coming from the Chief of the Emergency Services after I had sent them to what informed the press release. And I think it's important to also separate between two things. There was a special event that took place on the 28th that took place in the marquee or outside, or that's supposed to have taken place there. Or the normal church activity on a request by Sanko to say, we know the church is not compliant. Now it's my responsibility anytime that anybody brings that kind of information, I need to then act. So on the 9th, the information is brought to me. On the 10th, I did send out officials to go and inspect, and that is the report that we got. And at no point did we say that the church is going to be closed down. We said, and Prof quoted it properly to say that there are things that needed to be upgraded or to be looked at, and we highlighted them in there as per the report.
Okay. Let's go through this media statement.
Yes.
Because it's very important. So the people from JOC are saying, as far as they know, everything is fine with the church. I understand the church has been issued with another certificate, or maybe they'll be issued with another to operate the church. I don't know. What is the situation right now with the church? Are they compliant or are they non-compliant as we sit here today?
Ma'am, there has not been any church services from the 30th.
Yes.
After the event of the 31st. There were no any other church services. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other that you know of that might take place soon?
Ma'am, what I have noticed, we received categorization from
Police.
from the police, from Gauteng province, wherein they had categorized the event of the 3rd, of the 4th, the church services of the 3rd, of the 4th, and of the 8th.
Okay.
So we have had an ESSPC meeting, I think it's yesterday, if I'm not wrong,
Okay.
wherein we're discussing these church services which were oncoming with a new authorized member, Lieutenant Colonel Mangena.
Okay. So, as joke, you knew that the services were not running at the church during between 31 up to now.
They have closed them.
Yeah, they were closed. So, I'm going to read a few things and I want you to say whether this press statement reflects what you know. It says the escape routes leading to the escape doors are obstructed.
Ma'am, what is important is to understand when that inspection was carried out. Was it during a church service or when there was no church service? Then I will be able to answer, because if there was no church service, remember on the 31st they had a very big event.
Yes.
And after that event, there were so many chairs there
Yes.
that they had put everything,
And piled them into the
everything
halls.
in the halls and so forth. So, because I cannot say anything, because according to me, there were no church services until the weekend of the 18th. And we had said there will be no church service from our Office of Compliance. There will be no church service until we have categorization. We have these services categorized
By the kennel.
by the colonel, by Brigadier Kruger.
So when the fire people went to look at the church on the 9th or 10th, did they even indicate to you that we are going to have a look at the church that is closed to investigate what is correct and what is wrong?
That was held at the mayor's office, where the decision was taken to go and inspect the halls.
Okay. Mayor, when you asked them to go and inspect, were you aware that the church was in recess and that the chairs were piled up after that big event outdoors? Were you aware?
Ma'am, all I did was to, and it's on record, we can make the records available. There's a complaint that is coming to say there are people sleeping, in the premises where they're not supposed to be sleeping. There are people who are, using the grounds as ablution facilities, etc., etc. Now, the responsibility that I have is that when a resident or anybody comes, I need to then act on it. Now, if you look at the same statement immediately after the bullet points, it does state that there was also no proper sitting arrangement during the inspection, but the department can therefore not comment on the population load, because it does say that when we went there, the church was not in session. It was, however, noted by the number of chairs that in the wall that the population is perceived to be high during the sermons. But that is not in any way saying that the church is not compliant. But also, it goes further to say that the church is given 30 days to comply. Obviously, then that's when the job people will then step in, or the events people will step in. This is coming from a emergency or the Metro Police compliance, bylaw compliance people, would not necessarily come from the events coordinators.
Okay. Let's take you one by one. I'll come to you, Commissioner. The church is in recess. The chairs are stacked up everywhere and anywhere. They've moved all their things for safety to bring everything inside and probably lock up the church and go home. The mayor issues a statement that says, Simanga administration to issue instructions to bring Bushiri Church up to code. And then give them 30 days to remove the chairs that are obstructing the doors and to have sufficient firefighting equipment, and that they must have emergency lights and evacuation plan and proper storage of goods. So because of that, the media of course understands it as Bushiri's church is not compliant. And those are the headlines, which then creates more problems. You've got families who have lost their loved ones, and then they're reading in the media that we lost our loved ones because the church was not compliant. Remember, the citizens are not getting the escape routes and that because they're in whatever it's called, they've stacked up everything and blocked every door. But what the mayor then does is to create an impression that the church is non-compliant. Hence, the church has been given 30 days to correct all these wrong things that the church is doing. This in spite of knowing that and this without referring to people in these texts there under normal circumstances. You then create a situation where you adding fuel to the fire. The families who are hurting already, they become more hurt and more angry that this church is not even compliant and my mother died there. Because you issued a statement that does not reflect the reality of the matter, that all these things are blocked and whatever, because the church is not running. So when the media gets this, they interpret it and then run with the headlines. Is that fair from your side?
Ma'am, first of all, I don't control what the media puts out. Second of all,
it's controlled by what
no.
you put out.
Ma'am, I cannot control what the media puts out. I can control, I report, and I would put out the statement based on a report that I get.
No.
And, ma'am?
Wait, let's start this afresh. This is at the core of the hurt in the families. There are people who have died here, and we need to treat this with the dignity it deserves. Now, you are sitting there, you get that thing, you know the church is not running, you need to apply your mind to ask the people who are giving you the report. You issued the statement, they reported on your statement, you didn't give them the whole story. That all these things are happening because the church is in recess. You went with Bushiri's church is not compliant. And in us, ordinary people, that's why people died there. They are not even compliant.
Ma'am, I would like you to point to me where, in my statement, the one I'm looking at and the one that
it is for these reasons that the city will issue an order to comply.
Yes.
If I'm compliant, you can't issue me with an order to comply.
Right.
Now you issue me with an order to comply because I'm not compliant. Now you say I must tell you where you're saying the church is not compliant. Mayor, you know, you said that it's here. Last paragraph, first sentence. you'll issue an order to comply because they are not compliant.
To what, and I can point you to a Pointwens building where the correctional services officers are stationed. The building that I closed down on the day. You walk in there, there is inspectors that are walking around, they're seeing all the things that need to be complied with, and they will be categorized in terms of the danger thereof. And if it is at any point considered that those pose a danger, the building will immediately be closed. But if then there is a categorization that says these issues can be corrected, you are then going to issue out a certificate or you issue out and inform us that these are the. It is also important, ma'am, to say that in the first it further goes that also the fact that there were also an overload of the amount of chairs that in there, which is also going against what a hall of hall D. Then it means that there were, if you were to stack up those same, you still have a situation where you have an overload. It then, which are things that needs to be complied with. You cannot store a generator, a diesel a trailer inside a building with insufficient firefighting equipment. It doesn't necessarily mean that on Church Day then you will then have that it will all of a sudden be sufficient. And that is something that is not coming for the first time, has been there for quite a number of times. And that's why we said we were not going to close them, but we are going to issue them with a notice so that if they don't comply with these things that they're going to be. And to the members of the public that raised an issue of the findings related to what they said. They said to me, there are people who are sleeping there. I could have put in there that, I found people, I didn't find people. I'm reporting on factual things that were found in the premise. And I don't see what wrong we did in there because members of the public brought an issue to us. How was I supposed to respond to them?
They raised two issues with you. Sleeping in the premises. There are two things that they specifically complained about. Throughout this whole thing, there's nothing referring to find around the two specific complaints that you were supposed to respond to. You didn't respond to that. You are then saying, as far as your people who have been saying this church has been compliant the whole time, you then say to the media, it is for these reasons that the city it's the media that sensationalized the story of the church is not compliant. But we are saying you'll issue an order to comply. I'm saying if I'm a journalist and I read the sentence, I would say the church is non-compliant because of the. If after 30 days the requisite levels of compliance have not been met, it may result in a prohibition notice. So they even are given a time. Did at any stage you or your people ask the people concerned to respond to all those things? Because if you're saying the insufficient firefighting equipment, it means and looked at the insufficient firefighting equipment. JOC did not do anything about the insufficient firefighting equipment. Did you at any stage ask JOC, why have you been allowing these people to continue with the insufficient fire? The family called Swan.
Right. let me go back to what you read, ma'am, and I state again. If a building is non-compliant, there's levels of non-compliancy. There's medium risk, there's high risk in terms of non-compliance. I'll give you another example. I walked into Poynton's building with officials. The fire hydrant or the fire pump was not working in that particular building with one exit and entry point, which meant that should a fire have broken, the people would have died into that particular building. That's high risk. I shut the place there and then, and it was within the rights or the executive powers that I have. We sent people to go and inspect what was happening in the facilities at Tuareg. The report that came to me was that these are the issues, all the issues that had been raised, which by the way are on the same page, or the page 2, that were coming from the community, had been inspected, but this is what we found. Now, obviously, if the church was not in session, then you would not have found people sleeping there. That's fine. I cannot report that I'm not finding people sleeping there if there's no church taking place at that point in time. But I can actually then go and say, if there's a checklist that I need to be looking at, what is that checklist and what are those things that should have been complied with? And these are the things that the director who's responsible and the chief of emergency services who's responsible looked at and came in with a report that I just shared with the prof to say this is what we found to be non-compliant. And the same letter that I was showing prof is the same letter that was given to the church for compliance. So it's not as if we went to the media without offering the church an opportunity to correct. So what we were doing, you would remember, ma'am, that at the same time, there was an outcry. People were blocking the streets and all of that. People were saying if Msimanga is not going to respond, and the Southern members are here, they were saying if we're not going to respond within 2 days, they were going to actually burn the facility down. They are here, they can say if I'm lying. Therefore,
let's stand there, because I think you're touching on a very important thing. So you've got some who are threatening to burn down the church.
No, community members.
Oh, okay. I asked some yesterday, what is a community? Because in my head, I don't know what is a community. Let me continue with the community. The community is going to burn down the facility unless and until you do something. So, you're faced with 2 things here, and then the city of Tshwane is concerned with the people sitting, eating, and perhaps sleeping there. So the city of Tshwane can't be concerned about things the city of Tshwane did not witness on the day. So if the city of Tshwane is concerned about people sitting, sleeping, eating there, and the church is in recess, so the people who are sleeping, eating, and doing whatever there can't be the church people, because they all know the church is in recess. So where is this other 3 bullets on page 2? Where are they coming from?
Ma'am, I am saying to you, these were the issues that were raised as concerns. If you read that during the meeting, some additional concerns were raised, which included blah, 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 blah. Now, it says that when the church is in session, these are the things that are happening there. And we can attest to that because we had actually impounded some of the structures that were there. We had actually stopped people from sleeping there, from bathing there, and it dies down. Whenever the church continues, that comes up again. And obviously then you need to continue enforcing the laws. So I am not making this up. I am saying in that meeting that we had, these are the issues that were raised, and this is how we are now dealing with them.
Who's responsible for people sleeping outside the church? Is it the city or the church? Who must clean up the pavements exactly? Who's responsible? If people are loitering there and sleeping there, waiting for whatever they're waiting for, who must mop up these people sleeping on the streets? Whose responsibility is it? Is it the church's responsibility or the city's responsibility?
Well, ma'am, I can ask the question, or I can respond and also ask the question. I will respond that the responsibility of an event organizer is to ensure that within the precinct in which they are holding an event, then they are able to ensure that they are demarcating spaces for where people need to be cooking, where that's what an event's manager catered for. In actual sense, the city could come and say, you know what, we are going to close this because you are failing to control the crowds in which you're supposed to be controlling within the precinct or within the borders of where the people are supposed to be.
But Jock has looked at that. It's part of the tick checklist. They've looked at that and they haven't found anything.
Are you saying, ma'am, that if they checked, remember, there's compliance certificate to say this is your plan. What I think she should have been asked and that she should have elaborated on is that a certificate will be issued based on a plan. I am planning to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is how I'm going to accommodate people. This is how I'm going to make sure that there's safety. That's why there's even a private security company that will be hired. South African Police Service, the Metro Police Department will be addition to what is already being catered for. Could have at any given point when we see that over the weekends people are sleeping on the pavements, people are blocking entrances of the flats because the residents were saying some people are even blocking our flats and urinating on that. We could then say, because this is attracting so many people that are failed to be controlled, we could shut the place down.
Is the church responsible for what happens in the middle of the night when they're not operational?
If you have people that are coming to an event that you have in the following day, ma'am, or on the day and they're staying over, and you are supposed to be responsible until the last person has dispersed.
They have the event, there are people that have dispersed, they've left, and then there are people who are sleeping.
Well, the security person higher is supposed to make sure that everything up to the last detail is taken care of. That is including ensuring that when the event is finished, every person, every car, everything that would be obstructing to a normal life is actually taken care of. That's what happens in a normal planning.
What is the responsibility of the city again? When there's loitering, there's urinating everywhere, there's whatever is happening, irrespective of whether this is a church or a nightclub or whatever.
The responsibility, ma'am, is of the city to make sure that that is cleaned up and also to give notice to the events host or the facility where this event is happening. I can give a number of examples where in people will be making noise coming out of the nightclub going outside. I'm going to be no, ma'am. I am saying if you are coming to a nightclub, you go into a nightclub, you come out to stand at the door of the nightclub and continue to make noise. The owner on the door, they're not inside my club, I'm not responsible, but we are saying you're responsible because these are your partners, they are there in the vicinity coming to support you. So you cannot divorce yourself because all of a sudden now they are on the pavement. Okay. This is why we can then say if you're have a right to shut you up.
I like that. Because it's at night. During the day, people are loitering and sleeping. My nightclub is closed. The people are continuing to cause havoc here outside. I say to you, to be sweeping the streets of people during the day when the nightclub, it's not a day club, when the nightclub is closed, it's the city that must do the work.
Ma'am, are you saying then if the church is taking place, the church service is taking place on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, are you then saying that the people who are queuing, trying to get into that, should be chased away?
If the city gets a complaint that those people queuing outside are a nuisance, the city has the right and the responsibility to remove them if they are causing havoc in the streets, and it's the city that has the authority to tell people to walk away from the pavement that the city owns.
And then what becomes the responsibility of the event coordinator?
Remember, they're queuing outside because the event is not started yet.
Ma'am, as I'm saying, I think you're reading this all wrong. Let me give you another example.
You started with the nightclub.
Yes. No, that's fine. You're right, I started with that because I'm trying to give you all scenarios. And by the way, let's not beat around the bush. The church does actually have evening services as well. So the example that you use to say a nightclub actually can apply both day and night, because the church would have a day service and would even have an all-night service. So I can actually say that it's a 24-hour thing that is happening there. But let me give you another example.
The responsibility of the city is to keep
I am saying to you, ma'am, the responsibility of an event coordinator or somebody who's gathering an event is to make sure that anything that is happening in the precinct and around leading to that precinct needs to be comply with. I'm giving you an example. When you know that you have 20,000 people that are coming to your event, and you go past the 20,000, and now there are people without you having had an opportunity to create an overflow space, and people are forcing their way into an event, we can actually close the event down, even if the people outside, because they pose a threat. Now, I'm saying to you, ma'am, it is the responsibility of an events coordinator, who, by the way, in the same letter on the 29th, without even saying anything, and I've got nothing to do with the church. It's not anything to do with it. But I'm trying to move away where the city is actually blamed for something that was not the responsibility of the city. I am saying there was an events coordinator who on the 29th said everything that needed to happen, or we are ready to go. On the 29th, a day after the event the fateful incident has taken place, somebody from the church writes to the city and say everything is 100%. We are ready to proceed. It's there. It's part of the notes that I was saying to you, Prof. Let's look at what was attached into the compliance certificate. But I'm saying, ma'am, part of having a responsible event and why you have a job meeting is to then say, I'm able to take care of everything, and even if there's an overflow, I'm having a backup plan. Right to stop the event or stop the church from taking place. So if there were people that are loitering and people who are standing on queue, you are stop or chase away people. Let me tell you what happens, man, because this is now not theory, but what happened practically. You and saying, why are you denying us our right to association? But I am saying the responsibility lies with the people that are actually putting these events together to make sure that the events are compliant through and through.
Did you even space? Did you ask the job people as to how's this thing structured? Is there an overflow thing? When they saw the chairs that they were above the number of people who were supposed to be in that particular hall, I take it it's Hall C or whatever, did the people find out whether at some point these chairs are out there in the overflow? They're not necessarily here because the church has an overflow. So if maybe you had called Jock in your legal investigation, you would not have reached a stage where you're leaving it at the door of the media and saying, when they interpreted this non-compliant, it is not your doing, it is their interpretation. I'm saying to you, by saying that sentence, they will issue an order to comply. Once we issue an order to comply, it's because someone is not compliant. We can differ about that. But I can say, interpreting this thing, I would have interpreted exactly the way the media interpreted it. And also ask you, when you saw, I'm sure you are the mayor, you do watch these things called TV, and you realize that there has been a misinterpretation that the media was running with, that the church is non-compliant. Did you correct the media and say, actually, that is not what I said, that the church is non-compliant?
Ma'am, I state this again. What the media reports, I will not have control over. What I have control over is what the people found when they went and investigated, which doesn't change the fact. If you didn't comply with your firefighting equipment, you're not going to you are storing a generator that is full of diesel, anything can happen. Then you're storing it in a building without ensuring that there is proper or adequate protection. What I'm saying, ma'am, is we've reported facts. We never sensationalize anything. We send people and say, we highlighted the fact that in this church, there were no people on the day. So you cannot now not want to then say, the church was overpopulated at the point in time or not. This is why when we send out a statement, you then say, these are the things that I found. In addition to that, this is what members of the community has raised. But that doesn't necessarily mean that now, because the members of the story, I could have said, yes, we found so many kilograms of feces that were lining the fence. We didn't do that. And by the officials, the expertise in the particular field. Ma'am, let me give you another example. ZCC attracts 3 million people at any given time. You will never find 3 million people sitting and sleeping outside. That everybody that is going in there is within the facility. You will never see on the outside of that. Now, what we are saying, ma'am, is this. If you are going to organize an event and you know that your event is going to have X number of people or even over, it is your responsibility to make sure that they comply. If they don't comply and they overflow on the outside, then it is my responsibility to shut everything that you are trying to do. Is that what you're asking me to do?
May I rewind? I want to stay with non-compliance. You said a few minutes ago, it's not you who said it's the media, and you have no control over what the media does. So you are saying, my understanding, the media reported fake news that the church was not compliant, because that's not what you said, and you have no control over what the media says. If they want to report fake news and sensationalize things, that is not your doing. So it's the media that came up with the story.
I've said this, and I've given you an example of a place where we went to that I had shut the building immediately because of non-compliance and issues that are of high risk. And I'm repeating this again. These things that have been found to be contributing to the non-compliance continuing would have been there, would have contributed to the non-compliance. But those, we had given the church an opportunity to go and correct those by writing to them, following the right procedure. The person was non-compliant. You have X amount of days to go and correct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That has already been communicated. What the media would then pick up and leave is not something that I can control, because the media analyze anything and everything that they can to make the story juicy. I'm reporting to you what is actually factual, and what we know, that even if the church service was to happen tomorrow, there will not be compliance in any way.
So the joke issuing compliance certificates consistently the whole time, overlooking all these things and saying you're compliant, go on with the church, you are compliant, continue. So Jock was wrong in saying they're compliant, because you found out that there was insufficient all those things. Firefighting equipment. It's not like the firefighting equipment was there and then disappeared in one day. But Jock had been issuing compliance certificates consistently over years, in spite of all those things.
Well, it goes both ways. The question can also be, what has the church been submitting in terms of the application documents? Discussion on and on. I think there's an issue here to say, what was the compliance issue? I've given you what were the compliance issues that the city to make sure that there is compliance. City, at least, that says the church must be shut down. And you're talking about a media release that I released immediately after having to respond to that, and you are quoting verbatim from what we've written. And I'm saying what the media then subsequently wrote versus what I'm writing. I wouldn't have control over what the media says. I wouldn't have control over what the media would say. After the covering this, when we walk out of there, what I have control over is what I'm saying, and what are the facts is what I have control over.
Okay. Commissioner?
I just want to ask something. Is Loftus, for instance, part of your whole job process? If an event is happening at Loftus, would you? Okay. Now, the event organizer at Loftus, they would obviously have the same checklist and everything like that. That would be their responsibility, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I look at these items over here, insufficient firefighting equipment provided, would that be Loftus's responsibility or the event organizer's responsibility?
Insufficient? Well, the owner of the facility
Is
the owner of the facility said
Thank you.
must provide the firefighting.
No emergency lights provided.
It is the responsibility of the venue, but the safety officer is he does inspection because he's been appointed to assist in terms of safety, working with the event organizers. Must also issue now that there is.
Okay, but we are talking about Loftus over here, where you have a standard building that its function events, it does concerts, it does all these sort of things.
Yes.
No emergency evacuation plan. I mean, Loftus would have to have an evacuation plan, wouldn't they?
It must just have an evacuation plan.
And they must, in the middle of the evening, to provide firefighting equipment, because that is the building, that is the one that's being used.
Because they own the buildings, they must just provide some.
So in other words, if I look at this checklist on page 1, no, well, this
doesn't have this one. The bullet points.
So if I look at the bullet points on page 1, we know that we cannot count the first 2 because we know that they just had the crossover, and that which they had to hire chairs. They had to have found a storage place to put them in order for the people that they hired it from to come and fetch it eventually. I'm just surmising that there was obviously a whole. We can say, okay, that they're explainable why there would be extra chairs like that, because all the chairs were piled into the halls that they were utilizing. Improper storage of dangerous goods. I think that's the only one that I. But the 3 above that seems to be the owner of the building's responsibility. Now, as far as I understand, ECG is not the owner of the building, are they?
They are not the owner of the building, sir.
Who's the owner of the building?
Swabek.
Yes. So how come Swabek isn't mentioned once in this document? I find that rather strange.
Can I respond to that, sir?
You may.
If you are, you hire a tent, a certificate needs to be issued.
I think we need to. No. I think you're heading off in a direction. Let's compare apples with apples.
Okay, let's stick with the
this is an events
right
facility.
Right.
This is what they do. This is their business. These people hire the facility to do an event. So let's compare apples with apples.
Let's stick to the same ECG. In a particular space. For them to continue having a right to have the events in those particular spaces, it is in their interest to make sure that the facility is actually compliant. And if it's not compliant, it's up to them to actually say, the city is going to say no to us unless you as the owner compliant. What do I mean by that? So for instance, if ECG then says, we want to have an event, but ECG is going, the city of 2 every month, I'm to then go engage. Have the ECG have ever raised an issue of saying we've raised these matters up with the owner of the facility or with Twabek? I think that is a matter that will also now need to be looked at going forward. Have to say it's not our responsibility, it's the owner's responsibility, but as a tenant, you would take it, say that if something is broken, you're a tenant, even in a house that you're renting. You agree?
I agree, but the thing is, the event that has been taking place for the last year, things, and emergency lights aren't something that are just all of a sudden not there. Emergency lights have to have a UPS backup, emergency power backup, all these sort of things, which, I mean, that would take time to put in. And that means they weren't there for the full period of time that they were getting, that they were changed. From compliance from November, December, September, October, June, from January last year, from January the previous year, when those emergency lights weren't there, yet they were compliant. Now all of a sudden, after an incident has taken place, there's non-compliance. I find that rather difficult to understand.
All right.
Because, I mean, logic tells me that emergency lights are a permanent part of the structure. If I go to Loftus, there are emergency lights, permanent part of the structure. So how come this permanent part of structure never happened, yet they were compliant all along?
Okay. Then you agree with me when I say that there were a number of No, we agree that yes. Event, so we agree on that, right?
No. You found non-compliance in the building.
No, sir.
ECG doesn't own the building.
To agree, you raised the question about the issue of compliance all along, right? And so, and the chairperson was saying that I went out and said the building is non-compliant. So you agree with me that the building was non-compliant?
I'm taking your word for it because this is your inspection. So I'm taking your word for it that this building is not compliant.
Right.
That's what I'm taking your word for it.
Right.
Okay.
And this is not my word; it's the experts that went and did this. That's number one.
You represent it.
Yes. Number two is the issue of what brought all these things up again. What led to us going to do a thorough search, including now getting the experts to go and do this. It's not Solim Simanga that woke up one day and said, well, we need to go now and reevaluate this. It was a concern that was raised to say these are the issues that needs to be looked at, in addition to whatever you have been doing before. There might have been loopholes, lacks somewhere, and I will take that to say that perhaps when JOC meets, they take it at face value in terms of what documents are presented to them, and they would say, well, if this is what the event planner is saying, if this is what the security company is saying, if this is what the transport companies are saying, if we are able to then look at all the documents, we can satisfy ourselves that, you know, the event is in order. Which I do take that at some point you need to then do physical checks on that. I agree with it. But I am saying if this is brought to my attention, it's my responsibility to go back and give that feedback to the community, to say the community raised these issues. The community there was an unrest in inspect and report truthfully what was found. Then I would have also now omitted in my responsibility, and I cannot afford to do that. I need to make sure that I'm reporting back what is factually reported to me without sensationalizing it. Whether then it gets to be sensationalized by the media, it's another matter. What I do take is the point that you're making, sir, to say that the owner of the building needs to take responsibility, but the tenant equally needs to take responsibility as well, to say this is what will render my life difficult. Therefore, Mr. Owner, who I'm paying so much rent to, it is your responsibility to come and fix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I say, sir, again, if you rent this building here and there's forever electricity that is out because of a circuit breaker that needs to be fixed, whose responsibility is it to report that?
Just remember, they're not tenants. I think you've misunderstood the relationship they have in this situation. They're not tenants of this building. There are events. They rent this. They pay event fees in this building. They've never been tenants in this building. I think this is where we need to understand. They may have a continuous event every single, but they pay event fees.
But if you're having an event in a place Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the last 3 years or 4 years, what does that make you?
You're still an event. You're never a tenant. You never take responsibility for that building. It's not yours. You see, there's a difference between an event and a tenant. A huge difference. And I think this is what's being misunderstood. If you were, I don't know if you're aware, but that their event fees change every month. It can deviate from 800,000 to 1.1 million, depending on which events they're having and all these sort of things. They do not pay a fixed rental fee. And I think this is the things that need to come out, so that what is understood, what is actually going on over here. Because at the end of the day, you're making Beyonce responsible for the shortcomings of Loftus. And I don't know if that is the right relationship.
No, sir, I think you're using a very wrong example there. The events coordinator will be held responsible. An events coordinator is the one that submits a plan to say, we are compliant with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The events coordinator is hired, by the way, by the church, by the people who are seeking to have an event there. Right? So, Solim Simanga wants to have a jazz festival in Moretele Park. It is Solim Simanga's responsibility to make sure that there is compliance in terms of safety. Solim Simanga needs to make sure that there's compliance in terms of fire regulation. The Solim Simanga needs to make sure that there is compliance in evacuation plans. Now, if I'm not going to do that as an events planner, I am failing. So I'm not going to blame whoever's going to be on stage. I'm going to blame the person who's hired to make sure that that event happens, because those are the ones that are submitting documents. So I'm not saying here that the Prophet Bushiri is to be blamed here, and nowhere have I ever said that. All we said is what has been submitted, what has been found in that facility is found wanting. So that means that whoever needs to take responsibility needs to take responsibility. Now, the chairperson was saying, are we saying we're blocking the event from happening because now there's non-compliance? And we're saying that whoever is responsible to ensure that there's compliance needs to do that so that everything can go back to normal. Nowhere have we
to swap it. Your heading says Simanga administration. It's not from the media. It's to bring Bushiri Church up to code.
Yeah.
I want to put it to you that that's sensationalist. There are people who have died. You see, if you had said Simanga administration to issue instructions to bring SWA back, up to code, it would have been a completely different story that the media ran with. So the media did not sensationalize the thing. You didn't want to bring Tswaba into the story. You needed the church because people are unhappy with the church. I want to put it to you that when you're under pressure, you needed to throw someone under the bus.
No.
And the church with congregants of thousands. Our interest is in the people who go to the church, not Bushiri. We've always said as the CRL Commission, it's about the congregants and not about the person who's there as the religious leader. You are saying, if you had said, Tswabak, you bring them up to code, that would have been a colder story. And you needed to allay angers and to stop people, as you said, they were threatening to go and burn down the church itself. So in order to do that, I want to say to you as I conclude, you then threw the whole 100,000 people under the bus. It's not Bushiri, it's about people who go to that church, it's about people who are proud of being members of a particular church. If you write about my church, it's not about the reverend in my church. It's about me who goes to that church. And I think in the heat of the moment, as the tires were burning and as the anger was flaming, you needed to throw someone under the bus and be seen as doing the right thing. You are now saying, oh, I can't control what the media is doing. The media did not write Bushiri there. The media did not say an order to comply. You gave the media the information, they wrote the story, they ran with the headlines. And I'm saying to you, by doing that, you brought the church into disrepute. The congregants, and not Bushiri, you can take Bushiri any time of the day. You brought the church into disrepute. There are congregants who go to this church, and our interest lies there. There are 3 of them who have died. There are 19 who are injured, sleeping in hospitals, and are watching. The families of those who have died are watching. Did you at any given stage say, there's a crisis here, I need to be responsible as I do this? Let me not sensationalize anything. Let me not be ambiguous. Who is Tswabak? What are they supposed to be doing? They got this thing for free, as you say. They're collecting R1 million every month, 800,000 every month. They're already in arrears in whatever. They're just having a good life here. And they escape responsibility even at this level. That these Tswabak people are like a happy, spoiled child who keeps getting and abusing whatever they're abusing. And we are then saying it's those congregants who are irresponsible.
Ma'am, you know, I find your statement very unfortunate. The city has taken responsibility, and I've said it. There are certain things that we needed to have complied with, and you continue to say we're sensation. My responsibility is for the 3.5 million people of the city, including members that are going to that same church. That's my responsibility. My responsibility and that of this administration is to ensure that everything that is happening in this city is compliant with the law. My responsibility is to make sure that when communities are angry at some point, we need to ensure that we understand what the anger is coming from and resolve on that. We have said, ma'am, what we found when members of the community were raising issues and how we are going to be then dealing with that. I can't then go to Tswabak and say, I'm going to close hall so and so. If there's already an agreement to say the place is used by X on this particular day, I can write to the church and say, because the church is the one that applied through its events coordinator. I can then write to the events coordinator and say, I am going to stop you from having an event because this is non-compliant. The person who's having that event, it is their responsibility to ensure that everything that is happening there, whether it be them going to Tswabak, who is the owner, and say, you need to correct this or else I'm not going to get my compliance certificate. It's another matter. What we now need to agree on, ma'am, is that there is a problem that we're sitting with. that I've highlighted in there. Albeit it's not a high risk that the facility will be closed immediately, but it is a risk nonetheless, and we need to make sure that there's compliance. And if there's not going to be compliance as with the time that has been speculated, then we are sitting with a bigger problem.
Who's responsible for the risk? Is it SWAPEC, as he was giving an example of that stadium? Is it SWAPEC or is it the church? I want to say to you, SWAPEC for most of those things who have dropped the ball.
Who is applying for a job, ma'am?
They were not applying at that
No, ma'am, I'm asking a simple question. Who's applying for JOC to use the facility?
Let me explain what he has explained. They apply for an event.
Right.
And then they walk away.
Right.
And then they come back for another event. And then they walk away. If this was a normal church, they would be renting the facility. They wouldn't be going event by event. They would be, you see, if there are no services running, SWAPEC as the owner remains responsible. So during that period when we're investigating this thing, SWAPEC was responsible. But as I've said, you will draw your own conclusions from this conversation. But as I've put it to you, that when the city was burning, you panicked, Mr. Mayor, and you threw approximately hundreds of thousands of congregants under the bus just to keep peace.
Not at all, ma'am.
But that's what I'm putting to you, and I'm saying to you, that's the conclusion I'm walking away with.
Okay.
Chair, and the executive winner. My worry, my deepest worry and concern is that the executive mayor has a body that deals with the issue of compliance. And this body uses a structure to determine compliance. And all of the things that the mayor raised in this media release are contained in the checklist. If you look at the issue of fire safety, all of the things that are here are part of the checklist. Now, what this exposes is what I consider lack of rigor in the compliance, implementation of the compliance system. And to demonstrate lack of rigor, it has taken the mayor to institute an investigation to find the gaps. Which means this is only a taking form. None of the things that are here get to be rigorously engaged in an attempt to ensure that the event is safe as well. There are a number of areas here where they are calling for plans. Plans for this, plans for this, plans for the next thing. Now, if these are required, and still you can identify the fire is not well placed. Now, the question to be asked the executive mayor is whether you have a functional JOC committee on which you can rely. The issue of disaster management, which calls for the attention of this committee, is where the committee is required to have a venue layout, a plan for that, evacuation layout, and assembly plan points. Now, on the event of a disaster as the one that took place, these things would have kicked in. But because the plans were only there as semantic demonstration, they were not really interrogated, then we are landing where we are landing. Now, Mr. Mayor, the issues you identified must be categorized in terms of the two structures, two areas. There is what I call structural compliance, and organizational compliance. And the two are different in the sense that if something requires the structure to comply with its rules, then you identify who owns that structure for it to comply if there's somebody who hires to use it. If it's a tent, the person who used the tent must make sure that the structural part gets complied. Now, organizational compliance is when you deal with how you treat people, how you organize people. That's organizational deficiency or organizational compliance. Now, I wanted the executive mayor to make that distinction that the order you want to institute for compliance is a structural one, because the structure is not good for use. For example, firefighting, doors, structural things. So the structure, somebody owns it, because even if the event is not there, some other people may come, not in this particular church. But since the structure has got deficiency, it may constitute the same outcome as the one that we experienced on the 28th of So these two distinctions, Mr. Mayor, is the one I think you must consider looking at. But more importantly, is whether you have a committee that will assist you in the management of these risks. Thank you.
I think Prof has already touched on the disaster, which I wanted Mr. Mayor to bring up, but also go back to the issue of safety that I was asking Umama to say when they went on site and this was in place, and which she alluded that all what you say, especially when you look at insufficient firefighting, which in her assessment when they were doing inspection in local, that was in place and they were happy about that. And if you look at also the evacuation, if you look at the disaster management, because this is what they are using in assessment, what she found and the committee found was in place. But now we have this not there, and they were saying it is there, they're compliant. Maybe it's because of the two that are not speaking to each other, and that is coming from the city, which then makes it the disjuncture that we do not understand what is happening here. Who's telling what and who's not telling what. Which is therefore, hence we bring it back to say, it therefore goes to Tswane that you might not, or you are not advising the country or the community well, if the other side of your office says that, and you as a mayor as well, the other department, which was supposed to have been as well part of the checklist, and they come out to say, on the 10th, we are not compliant. However, on the 31, they were compliant. Maybe it's that we do not understand to say how that come to be. The others say it is, and the others say it's not. So it's a pull and push in your city, Mayor.
Ma'am, I agree, and this is why at some point I said there needs to be a check in the loop, because if you heard what Mama was saying was that they are requesting documents, and I'm sitting here with the same file of the documents that would have been submitted. Now there's a company here. I don't know if I should disclose the name, but there's a company here that was responsible for what they call events and production. And part of that was that they needed to then come up with an evacuation plan. and this is a structure that would have been presented. Where I agree with Prof and where I agree with you is that it's not good enough to just get a company that says this is how we're going to do it. That perhaps there needs to be a follow-up in terms of let's go and physically walk and see whether this thing is compliant. But you see where this might lead us to might be that I might need to now say on a permanent basis until all these things are shut, no event can take place there. That might lead to that.
But Mayor,
Those are terrorists.
Ma'am?
Checks you are using.
No,
And
ma'am.
see, Mayor,
I'm-
don't terrorize the church.
Ma'am,
You can't be saying because you have made so many mistakes here as the city.
No.
The police did not do what the police were supposed to be doing. People went on leave at a particular time, and there's a discrepancy between what SWAPAC should do and what the church should do. And then you say, because you have the power to do that,
No, ma'am.
you can come back and say, there will be no church service
Ma'am,
until I'm happy about it.
You're talking
I think
about the
that is
usage.
totally out of order.
No, ma'am, you're talking about a usage of a building. You said, and that is in the commissioner's own words, forget that the church is using the facility. Remember who is the owner of the facility and is that facility compliant. That's where I'm taking it. I am saying, if the church is ordered, by the way, if the church doesn't have a full-time lease, then it means that somebody can come in next week and want to use it. So it's not about the church, it's about the compliance that goes into the building. And this is why I'm saying, ma'am, if the team now are going to interrogate that what is submitted here, and that's what I was leading to. If the team is going to
Can I
interrogate,
assist you on what she has said?
Yeah.
She said on the 31st they've received the file, whatever that was outstanding, and whatever that was outstanding, that
Went to check.
and they went to the
Right.
site and
Right.
they ensured that they walk and they were checking whatever that needs to be for the event to take place, and they were happy that all was compliant. They did that already.
and ma'am, I am saying, there are other things that you will not be able to do them on the day of the event. So I'm accepting that there might be some loopholes in the system that I need to go and fix. And I must say this, ma'am, and I don't want to ever leave here with a sense that Msimanga is attacking the church. I am not. But as a responsible facility, like the commissioner was raising, to say the owner of the building needs to take care of this facility. And you are saying they are not tenants, but they are renting a facility for an event. Therefore, I then need to then say this facility that is being rented is non-compliant, irrespective of who's using it. But that's what I'm saying. But you were twisting my words, ma'am, to say I'm now victimizing a church and I'm using dictator tendencies, which is not the truth.
The thing is, man, you have raised the issues. You've given the church 30 days to comply. Because this was about the church now, not SWAPAC.
To comply.
For sure to comply.
For SWAPAC also comply.
Yes. And
No,
have
they
you
are.
checked? They are not mentioned. But have you checked whether they have complied or not? That SWAPAC has done what SWAPAC was supposed to do, and the church has done what the church was supposed to do. Before you go with, I'm now going to say the church mustn't operate until. But have you checked whether the church has done what needed to be done and SWAPAC has done what SWAPAC needed to do? Hence, I'm reacting the way I'm reacting when you say, then I can say everything must stop until.
No.
It can't stop when you have listed specific things and those are complied with.
And again, I reiterate what I said. If I follow what the commissioner was asking, it will lead me, if the 30 days go and there's no compliance, it might lead us to not allowing any kind of event to take place in there, because it would have meant that the 30 days of compliance would have come and gone, and therefore there cannot be an event.
Can you please just point out to me where you mentioned SWAPAC in this?
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yes. The City of Tshwane Emergency Services Department conducted joint site inspection at the SWAPAC Hall D and H.
Okay, now, where do you mention that they have to comply?
No. They said we've never brought SABC into this, and I'm saying because they are the facility owners or they are the facility themselves, we are mentioning them there.
Okay, are you also aware that the main hall that ECG uses is actually Hall C? That's the main hall that they utilize. Actually, Hall D and Hall H are overflow halls, if I can recall, and Hall H is not even that is I think it's the smallest hall that is utilized for guests usually and everything like that. As far as I might speak under correction, but I think that is the smallest hall that they have in the whole facility of halls that they utilize. So now you're making them comply on 2 halls when they use over 5 halls. What about the other 5 halls? Have you?
Well, so that is an important one, and perhaps we now need to go and look at a problem that might be deeper than what we're talking to here.
Thank you.
And as you said, if we need to look into that, I'm not talking about the ECG. I'm talking about the compliance of a building, irrespective of who uses it. And that might actually require the city to do an overall audit of the facility, because I know for a fact that there are halls that even UNISA is using for exams. So it's not about the church. And I'm not here to defend, the unhappiness of a faction of the community against the other. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to ensure that at the end of the day, the residents of the city, irrespective of which side they're on, there is compliance with law and order, and that's what I'm going to do.
I agree with that statement 100%, but I also think that I have to agree with the chair. When you issued the statement to bring Vashiri Church up to code, when these are structural compliances and the tenant or they would be a tenant, wouldn't they? The owner of the building is the one that is responsible. I have to agree with the chair that I think that to bring Vashiri Church to code was definitely the wrong words to use.
Well, perhaps that would have been the wrong word to bring the church. And perhaps we're now delving into technical issues. Perhaps what we now need to then say, and this is again, if I were to then say that the chairperson will then flip my words and say that I'm targeting the church, I'm using draconian law. Whereas you are now arguing the same point to say, concentrate on structural deficiencies of the building, irrespective of who's there.
But that is your responsibility as council.
Yes, I'm saying that, sir. But I'm saying if I were to do that and find out there is non-compliance, and if I have to stop, the chairperson in her own words saying now I'm being a draconian or dictator.
Because you were saying, let me quote you again, when I can always just shut down the church until and unless.
No.
But what I'm saying to you is, your job has said they've been complying for years. This is not a new thing. You go there once, you send someone there once when the church is not even in session. You sensationalize the heading of your media statement, and you then not allocate structural deficiencies to operational deficiencies. And I'm saying to you, that created a crisis for the hundreds or thousands of people who go to that church. It created a crisis for the families who had lost their loved ones. It created a crisis for those who were injured because of the reckless use of words. And you can walk away from it and say, as you have said repeatedly, you're not responsible for what the media reports. I don't need to defend the media. They can defend themselves very well. How they got to that heading that was flashing everywhere is how they got to that heading. But I'm saying where I'm sitting, they seem justified to have concluded that all those bullet points had everything to do with the church and not SABC. So we can argue this some other time, Mayor. I can go away with what I'm going away with. Power and authority to conclude. comes with responsibility, even-handedness, and treating everyone as equal. The Constitution, when it was developed, was not developed for our friends.
I don't have friends in here.
It was developed for those we do not like.
I don't have friends in here, ma'am. I have more than 3.5 million citizens to look after.
Listen to me. When the right to religion, all the Bill of Rights were written, it was to say, even when we don't like certain people, we don't like certain things, we will protect those because they are part of the Constitution. We will not be tempted to say, now that we are here with this, we'll take away the rights of people and treat them anyhow. Hence I was saying, for you to close down a church, you need to think about right of religion for whatever reason. But lastly, I want to say, as the CRL Rights Commission, would like to see the bigger in the full implementation of the bylaws of the city, everywhere and anywhere where churches are concerned, so that we protect the lives of people. Even-handedness, forceful implementation of all bylaws everywhere before people die. That will be my conclusion today, Prof. I think we've traversed this as much as we needed to.
I think, yeah, you have summarized the proceedings. Our role is to protect and promote the rights of cultural, religious, and linguistic communities. And it is important that we treat them with the kind of dignity that they deserve. In doing so, we must pursue the rights of people to believe in what they believe. And the only point at which there is an intersection which separates the belief is when that belief affects human dignity. When that happens, the whole idea of religious freedom gets to really have to be examined again. So the role that we all must play is to ensure that the religion flourishes in our communities as long as it serves good purpose, namely to make our people better citizens and participate in the life of our society. Thank you, Charles.
And thanks to our agenda.
Because I need to make a list for you can't do it on yeah, so when are you coming? Kanti labantu, how come they are not available? Are they not trustworthy? The ones that you bring them, why can't you bring all of them? Oh, they don't work for you. Just get started. They don't work for you.
Yeah, I just need. I need that there's a card there. Then there's a
Why did you do that? Don't ever do that. Why did you do that? That's why they are people are like, no matter how much,